Hello, folks, and welcome to Subjective Thoughts. And our book for today is War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. Now, there is destruction, violence, killing, and aliens in this one, so if you are in any way squeamish, you have been warned. Also, spoilers. Alright, I'll leave the name of the publisher up here. So, War of the Worlds is another quite well known classic, I take it. There's been, I think, definitely more than one movie about it, and at least I think it's quite a famous story. Now, this is my second H.G. Wells book. The first one I've ever read, which was last year, is The Invisible Man. And then I started reading this and finally finished. So, to summarize the plot, aliens have invaded Earth from Mars. Now, this was published in 1890 something. I looked up today, so imagine it's all that, but with the technology of back then. So, no things like there would be guns and everything, no phones. There's telegraphs and everything. Oh no, maybe there were phones. I don't know what year the phone was invented. And even then, people still wouldn't have one in their own private house. But anyway, yes, the aliens have invaded from Mars to Earth, and it's from the point of view of one man whose name we never learn, and he's just retailing his account of the invasion of this war. How the first pod landed, and at first no one knew what it was. Everyone was looking, and then it opened, and like aliens, and the humans, we come in peace. They brought a flag, and then the Martians just sent a heat ray and killed the party that was there to welcome them. And since then, they started to invade. Now, this is all happening in England, in really all sorts of towns, and then in London. And so our narrator just recounts what happens, how it begins, how there are more pods that keep falling. There's a total of 6 of them. Yeah, a total of 6 that reach Earth, anyways. I think 10 were shot, but only 6 made it. So they open. The Martians use these machines that are like here on the cover, are like a little robotic body, but really big with arms. Yeah, sorry, with these kind of legs, and they go around. And from that, they shoot their heat rays, destroy buildings, kill people. And so the narrator recounts how, when this all started, he told his wife to go to his cousin, and he went back to return a carriage that he borrowed. And on the way, things got even more fucked, and so he was separated from her and was moving around basically. And then there's an account from his brother who also survived. And so he depicts what happened, how they progressed, how more Martians came, how a troop of soldiers actually managed to knock one of the machines down, only because they didn't notice them, the Martian and the machine, and they shot at the legs, and so the Martian fell with the inside the machine and died. Now, at first, when it began, they thought the Martians wouldn't be able to even get out because the gravity is much greater than it is on Mars. And they thought, maybe they'll just be stuck there in the hole, in the big pit that was created. So the narrator continues to tell us all this. At one point, a curate joins him. I think some man of God or something, and how they scavenge for food, and then they get stuck for like 15, 16 days inside a house because another pod from the Martians landed on it. And you know how things are tense between him and the curate because the curate's losing his mind from everything is going on. And our narrator ends up, after they have a fight, bonking him on the head with the cleaver, with the handle side. And then the Martians, where it landed, it's like they're stuck. The house was destroyed, but the part that they're in wasn't. And they have this like peephole on the floor they can look through at the Martians. But the curate starts making noise, and to stop him, he knocks him out. But then the Martian in a robotic sort of suit grabs the curate, who's unconscious, and he dies because the Martians are essentially, they're described as brains. Their body's like meaningless. All it is brains, so they don't have a digestive system or anything like that. And the way they nourish themselves is through blood. They take the blood from other creatures and inject it into themselves. So the curate has been turned into food. And they also brought like these huge creatures with them as nourishment when they were ejected towards Earth. As later on, the Martians were dissected after this was all over, and they looked at everything there. So yeah, things are pretty bad. The Martians also send like this wave of black, sort of not smoke, but sort of a black fog on cities, and people immediately die after they've inhaled it or it falls on them. And that is, as you can imagine, is not to mention terrifying, but also horrendous. And also, everyone's trying to escape. People get trampled to death from that. It's everyone's in a disarray. And so our narrator, after he's been in that hole, the Martians left finally, and he was able to leave. And he keeps going towards London. And no one's there, and along the way he meets a man that he met before that has these grand plans on how they're going to survive, but he's clearly maybe slightly lost it, to say the least, after everything. Our narrator parts with him, keeps going towards London, and then he sees the first Martian, but the Martian in his suit doesn't move, and as he goes deeper in, he sees that they're all dead. Oh, and also there's these red plants from their planet that grow really huge. And their planet, they're red, no greenery. But he also sees along the way that some of them have died. And that, this has killed me. And actually, I don't remember what I read. But I read something last year that spoiled the book for me, where it was said what killed the Martians in War of the Worlds. And I was like, ah, man. I wish I remember what I read it in. But what kills the Martian is, in a way, the common cold. Germs. At least it's so believed. Because they're all laying dead in London there. The narrator's looking unbelieving. After everything, after he was sure the Earth is lost, the Martians are going to take over. They even had a contraption that could fly. And germs supposedly killed them. And then the words that the day before, apparently, other men have already discovered this. A telegraph was sent by one man. And so things slowly go back to normal. He goes back to his home. Again, after everything, he kind of lost his mind for a bit, and a kind family took him in and took care of him. And then he left them to go back to his home in Woking, it was, to see if maybe his wife was there, because the place where she was staying with his cousin, it was completely demolished, and he thought that she was dead. And he goes into his home and sees everything as it was left that day, where he came back with that man he met along the way. They were staying there briefly. And then he goes down, but then he hears voices, and it's his wife and his cousin. And he sees her through the window, and she's looking, oh, I knew I should have came back, and she kind of sways, and then he holds her in his arms. And later it's the epilogue where things are being fixed. There's food sent from France. People are coming back. Things are being fixed. It's hard to imagine how this all started. And they noticed that in Venus there, perhaps the Martians send themselves over there. Now the reason the Martians came to Earth in the first place was because they needed a new planet because theirs they couldn't stay on anymore. The conditions were not there. But they needed more a better planet to live in. And so that said, the narrator looks all around, can't believe that all this happened, that he's still alive, and he and his wife thought they would be looking for each other in the list of the dead. And that's it. That's more or less the plot. Okay, so first, the cover on this edition. I would say I'm not big on this edition because the font is pretty small in it. Reading one page felt like reading three. And yeah, the cover's pretty good though. I like the drawing. It's quite creative. Okay, so that's on the cover. Now for the story. So yes, I've heard of War of the Worlds a lot, and I've always wanted to give it a read. Now that I have it, so well again to be fair, this the sci-fi story was written like before the 19th century. Oh wait, 19th century? Yeah, it was written before the 19th century started, so over a century ago. So it's not gonna have the things that I'm used to today. Yeah, I was born in the late 90s, so my kind of sci-fi stories has aliens and shooting, and there's already guns and military and advanced weapons. So if aliens landed, I would have expected that kind of fight. So here it's a more, it's like I guess a more slightly down to earth version of the aliens invaded back then before all this new technology and phones and everything. So it's a more realistic, I suppose, look on how that would work, especially in that time. And what could people possibly do, even though there were breakthroughs in science and everything, but no phones, no, no way to detect things, no way to tell people immediately, like when the heat ray was first fired from the pit. They couldn't. Now today, someone even who was there nearby could have just pulled out his phone, call the police, or call to tell other people. They would hilarious enough live stream the whole thing, and then people would see, and it would spread all over, and people would know. Back then, with the means of communication that they've had, so yeah, both interesting and frustrating. There's nothing more that they could really do. For some reason, it made me think of the Suki Steakhouse series a little bit. The way we were in the Suki Steakhouse, but Charlene Harris is, yeah, there's vampires, but it's showing a side and how it would really work with them trying to incorporate into society and the rules and everything. And the guy made me think of this where, there's no big booms like secret agents and all that shit against the aliens. It's just normal people, the army that was in the time, and what the fuck are we gonna do? And if it wasn't for this supposed germs, although later on it seemed that they didn't have any germs in them, that was the thing that essentially killed them. If it wasn't for that, supposedly, then they would have just taken over Earth because they needed a new planet to inhabit. And even the narrator said, one day we might, when our sun gives out, we'll also need to go and find a new planet. And it was a very interesting look at it, and then find myself, wishing for the Martians to die. It's just kind of the kind of reading it was interesting to see what would be done. It's essentially two races, fighting to, well, not really fighting since the humans couldn't do so much, but still, It was a war for a world. But with the name like War of the Worlds, I guess you might expect something a bit more epic. Like a whole fight and everything, and then there wasn't so much of it. But I suppose it was a war of worlds, the worlds of the world of the Martians and the world of men. So, and I suppose that was that. But still, I did enjoy the read, and it was interesting. Would be interesting if someone rewrote this, but with today's technology and everything, how would the book go? Because here the whole invasion took a month. How would things go and progress if they were, how they are today? I suppose I saw there's a movie in 25. Sorry, in 2005 that came out. So maybe then that's basically gonna depict what I'm thinking about because there were phones and everything. So maybe I'll watch that because I am curious how all this communication and everything would have worked today. What could have people have done? But it did depict very well the hysteria there would have been and how many people wouldn't survive, which is based on the fact that they would start running panicked without really thinking what would be the best course of action. Not that it's so easy when you got something like that on your doorstep, but still. Yes, this was a good read. Although at times, I don't know, maybe it's the font size, but at times it did feel a bit dry. Maybe because kind of like with the Lovecraft stories in a sense where you have a nameless narrator and he tells you about everything, but you don't know anything about him really. And it's just kind of these descriptions on like a third person perspective where you read what's happening to the man and you know everything about him. But that is about all. I definitely want to read some more H.G. Wells stories. I think perhaps he's the one who wrote Time Machine. No, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he didn't write Time Machine. I gotta check. But anyway, that was War of the Worlds. If you like sci-fi, I think you might like this, but don't expect the explosions and everything. I do think most people probably gave us a read at one point that like sci-fi, so they already know. Yes, if you want a bit of old sci-fi or like H.G. Wells, I definitely recommend this one. Alright, folks, so that is it. Let me know if you read War of the Worlds and what did you think about it. And that is it. Remember, collect what you're passionate about and share it on YouTube. Bye!